Yes, yes. What's going on, people? It's your boy, the Boxing Lowdown here, and I'm here for episode number 47 of the Boxing Lowdown podcast. And as always, I know you guys have been waiting for this one, man. But listen, I'm delighted to be joined by my father, Mr. Controversial, the main man in the building. People have been waiting to see what you've got to say today. They're tuning in for you, really. They're not here for me. They're here for you. I've also got another special guest in the house. I'm going to bring him on in a minute. But let me just introduce you right here, man. Laurie from AFTV in the building. What's going on, man?
I'm all right, man. Hang on a minute. Let me just had a little drink of my herbal tea here. Just had a little drink of my herbal tea, so I'm good to go.
Oh man. I'm sure
you know what it is, right? It's amazing how these herbal teas, the kind of oomph that you get just by drinking herbal tea. I mean, you could go and buy these in the supermarket, and the lift you get from these, apparently.
Oh man, guys,
you gotta laugh, ain't you? You gotta, otherwise you're gonna cry, or just throw something at your computer screen or your TV screen. You've got to laugh at these people, man. You know what I mean? Not only are they blatantly cheating, these men are trying to insult our intelligence as well. So I thought, for Oscar Valdez, herbal tea, then I'm going to drink herbal tea from now on.
We'll get into it, man. I'm going to also introduce, because I've got another special guest for the show today.
All right, okay.
I'm going to bring him in. He's another controversial figure. Look, guys, I'm not going to get a word in today. Let me just say that. I'm not going to get a word in because I'm delighted to bring in boxing reporter and writer Shane. This guy, man, love having him on the show, and he's joined us again today. Shane in the house. What's going on, brother?
What's up, man? I'm privileged to be here. I'm not gonna lie. Number 47. I can't believe you've done so much episodes. If you think about it, that's amazing that you managed to maintain such a good pattern and routine. That's dope.
Do you know what it is? Yeah, it's a lot of it is down to a lot of the people that view the show, man. We don't have loads and loads of viewers, but the ones that do lock in are legit. So I'm going to go to the comment section here because we've already got loads of people. Let me just give them a shout out. Harvey has said here, this one's going to be interesting. Brother, you know it already, Harvey. It will be. Francisco has put here, good afternoon from Arizona. I'm enjoying a spot of green tea, and I've never been to Reynoso's gym, so my alibis are solid. And like Harvey's laughing. Conrad Boxing in the house. He's put here, you guys are a fire duo. Ian Hamilton has said here we go. This is going to be a good one. Get the popcorn ready. Laurie is going to go crazy. WM has put here, yes, this is my favorite show of the week. Francisco, I've got your comment already, bro. Stefan has put here, wouldn't surprise me if Ryan Garcia has been serving a silent ban either. That's a great point there. Let's just get straight into it here. Conrad in the building as well. Laurie, I'm going to give the floor to you in a second, but the news broke this week of Oscar Valdez, his A sample testing positive for phentermine, which is a central nervous stimulant prohibited by the VADA commission. I mean, he got tested and he got popped dirty on Tuesday. He's due to defend his WBC title that he won against Miguel Berchelt against Robson Conceição on September the 10th. And that is currently in the air. Surprisingly, it's not been postponed yet, but his A sample has tested positive. And, straight away, the talk has to come from like where this has come from. Eddie Reynoso's gym. He's already had 2 people in that gym that have popped dirty. Julio Cesar Martinez has popped dirty for clenbuterol. Canelo Alvarez has popped dirty for clenbuterol. So there's a lot of question marks as to what is really going on in there. And Laurie, you've been a vocal person on Canelo Alvarez every week. You've been a vocal person on drug taking in boxing. And the first name that came to my mind when this all happened was you. You know what I mean? I got messages from everybody all over Twitter, on my WhatsApp. They were like, yo, Laurie's going to snap. Laurie's going to go off. Laurie, I can't wait to hear what Laurie has to say about this. So I'm going to open the floor to you. I'm going to let you talk. DS in the building as well. He's put good evening, gents. Laurie, just give me your thoughts on this, man.
Of course. But before I go any further, Shane, if you're ever in need of a lift, mate, herbal tea is the way forward. But listen, let me start off by asking your viewers out there a question. I'm pretty sure you and Shane will probably know it. So it's not really meant for you two guys. But if I give you these following names: Julio Cesar Martinez, Luis Neri, Oscar Valdez, Saul Alvarez, aka Canelo. What have all those fighters got in common? They're all trained by Eddie Reynoso. And what's the other thing they've all got in common? They've all been busted for pets. Some of them twice in the case of Canelo. Now, what does that tell you straight away? You know what I mean? What does that tell you? You know what I mean? These guys are cheats, man. You know, there's no other way to describe it. They are cheats. The whole world knows. But the shameful thing about boxing is that in boxing, there seems to be this little hierarchy. I mean, like if you're Jarrell Miller, everyone's saying, oh, get him out the sport, get him out the sport. I'm quite right. He should be thrown out the sport. But when it's your number one pound for pound, so-called face of boxing, oh, it's not, you know what I mean? You up the levels of Clenbuterol, you allow him to get away with it, you call him the pound for pound king. And I've always said it repeatedly on the show, Daryl. I've said it to you privately, both to you and Shane. How the hell, what other sport do you know? What other sport do you know that the main protagonist in that sport is a drugs cheat? Name me one. I mean, I was watching it's funny how all this should break during the week. You know what I was doing on Sunday, you guys? I was actually watching a documentary about Lance Armstrong. And everybody who's into sport will know about Lance Armstrong. 7-time Tour de France winner. As soon as he got convicted for drugs, what did they do? They stripped all of his Tour de France victories. They've struck from the record, okay? And he got sued by the US Postal Service to the tune of 10 million. He had to revise the settlement downwards just so he could afford it. And his name is forever tarnished. He's forever known as a cheat. But boxing, you can cheat as much as you want. And not only do you get away with it, you get lauded as the number one pound for pound guy in the sport, which to me is ridiculous. And it says as much about boxing as it does about the people who do this stuff. The fact that we allow him to get away with it. Manny Pacquiao. Now listen, Manny Pacquiao has never failed a drug test, but you chat to anyone in boxing and they will say to you that there are serious concerns surrounding that guy. Look at the shape of his head over the last 10, 15 years. The man's, listen, when you get a guy, right, that can start off at light flyweight and a decade later, he's knocking out light middleweight. Don't that like trigger something? But he's allowed to get away with it. And listen, Manny is a slightly different case because he's not actually failed a drugs test. But like I said, there's been rumors surrounding him for several years.
Let's keep it real, though. He just took VADA testing for the last fight, and he looked like trash, bro. Well, I'm not going. There was VADA testing for the last fight, and he looked so trash. So I'm gonna call it a spade.
Yeah, I mean, listen, guys. Right, I know Shane wants to come in, so we're gonna let him have his say. But how would you feel upon hearing that news if you're Miguel Berchelt? Remember what happened to Miguel Berchelt when he fought Oscar Valdez? He suffered a possibly career-ending knockout. The man was stretched out on the floor for minutes. That's never happened to him before. Oscar Valdez was going up in weight against a guy that most people said was going to beat him because Miguel Berchelt is known for his punching power and his strength and his durability. He got iced. And at the time, everyone was going, oh, what a performance. Oscar Valdez has gone over to the Reynoso gym. Look at the improvements he's made. Come on, bro.
That's a fact. I was one of the.
His life that night. Is that what boxing is waiting for? So Canelo, God forbid, knocks somebody out cold and they never recover. Is that when you're going to say, well, you know what? Maybe we need to look further into this. You know what I mean? It's disgusting what's going on. You know what I mean? And people are just sitting by and idly letting this stuff go. They only want to care about pegs in sport when it applies to certain lower level fighters because they're easily got out the game. You know what I mean? Who cares about Jerome Miller? He's bum anyway. That's what people are going to say. But when it's one of the more higher profile guys, especially someone like Canelo, who's pretty much got a country behind him, and he's got, you know what I mean, a sanctioning body, the WBC, that will bow at his every whim. You've got journalists, especially from mainstream media, who are in cahoots with all this going on. They're not going to say nothing. Oh, it's Clenbuterol. Oh, it was only a diuretic. Listen, let's have it right about this diuretic stuff Anybody who knows anything about this type of stuff, right? They will tell you that diuretics, right, is one thing to use it to cut weight, which is still cheating, by the way, because it means you weren't able to do it legally. So you've gone and done it illegally by taking a lot of these diuretics, Daryl and Shane, you probably know this already, are what they call masking agents. In other words, what they do, you take these diuretics and they flush the PEDs that you've been taking out your system. It enables you to cycle on. So you take the drugs, you get the benefits of it, yeah? And then what you do, when you know the tests are coming up and stuff, you take your diuretics and you wash all that stuff out your system. So you're able to go cycle on, cycle off. These guys are cheats and they've been getting away with it for years. And yes, people are saying, oh yeah, but they're not the only ones. That doesn't matter, they've been caught, right? And it's an insult for people to say everyone in boxing is doing it. Like I said to you a couple of weeks ago on your show, Daryl, I know a lot of professional fighters. I was even chatting to one in the week, actually. And he was explaining, I'm not going to name his name for obvious reasons, but he's explaining to me his frustration. He can't get a fight at the moment, you know what I mean? And he's struggling a little bit, you know what I mean? These guys, that's what they do for a living. And he's in the prime of his life physically. And he should be fighting, earning money and building up to a title shot. And he's frustrated, he can't get work. Now, the thing about this guy is, right, and I'm not trying to demean him in any way, he probably couldn't afford all that stuff that these men are taking. Because that's the other thing. When you're working with these guys like Reynoso and other people, so-called nutritionists and scientists, and all this stuff costs a lot of money. So to say, oh, everyone's on it, so no, then everyone's not on it. That's just an excuse that the cheats proffer up, you know what I mean? And like I said, us as fans now really need to start taking the bull by the horns, man, and say, look, we demand that these guys be thrown out the sport, or at least be given heavy bans. That's all I've got for now, but I've got more.
Shane, like to give us your thoughts?
I might keep it short because Laurie literally just basically said it perfectly. But I would say, like, one thing I do agree, and I feel like I will emphasize, is that people don't look at the actual, what's the word? The gym itself. I feel like that should be highlighted even more, because if people in that gym is repeatedly taking drugs, then I feel like everybody should be under that scrutiny. I'll give you an example. If I go to a house and I know there's a murderer, a known murderer who's under investigation in that house, and I decide to live in that house and stay in that house, I shouldn't be surprised if my door gets kicked off. It's the same thing. You shouldn't be surprised if and the reason why they're a victim of their own success is because supposedly this is some tight-knit group. Laurie and Daryl, if me and you are training every single day and we're in the camp every single day and you two take drugs, but I don't take drugs, everybody, I'm going to be seen as drug takers just because I'm part of the same group as you, just by association. And then I do then have to start applying scrutiny to the other fighters in that gym who haven't been caught yet. So for example, and I said this to you guys offline, these drugs are used to cut weight. Now, one person who's had a miraculous weight loss in that camp since he joined is Andy Ruiz. Let's just keep it real. He's been big his whole career. And I literally saw 2 weeks ago, him and Oscar Valdez posted a picture of them being friends since they were kids. Then they both joined the Eddie Reynoso camp. He's had a miraculous in 5 months. Out of 27 years of your life, you've had weight problems. In 5 months, all of a sudden, no weight problems. That don't make sense to me. That doesn't make sense to me.
Down to the harder training that he's doing. You know what I mean? Eddie Reynoso is this miracle man. Isn't it?
But then your best friend in the gym gets done for a drug that makes you lose weight. It doesn't. It just. I don't need to go outside to see if it's raining. That's my point.
Sorry to interrupt as well. That's a very good point you raise. And another guy training at that gym, Ryan Garcia. Have you noticed how muscular he's become all of a sudden?
Exactly.
He lost on people.
And then
this man's supposed to have fights, and he's not fighting due to so-called mental issues. But then you see pictures of him on holiday with his girlfriend.
And then Sanchez, who's just joined the camp as well, he's older than Laurie, and he's still fleet of foot. He's still so fast. Like, let's keep it real.
He's not. We try to say about my age, man. But anyway, listen, man. it's all about herbal tea, bro. You know what I mean? If you want that long-lasting life and punching power and fleet of feet.
What do you think, Daryl? What do you think, Daryl?
Very concerning. I saw also Oscar Valdez. It was leaked of what he released to VADA, saying that he had no knowledge of it. Obviously, the herbal tea excuse came in. The fact that they're even debating whether this fight should happen or not just shows to me how messed up boxing is right now. Tested positive. I mean, why is this still a debate? I mean, but what does the other fighter think? Do you know what I mean? Has anybody even taken that into consideration? Like, the fight is next week. Like, what is actually going on? I just think that something's not right in that gym. I don't know what it is, but something ain't right.
They're cheats. That's what's wrong with it. They're cheats, though. That there's no. And the thing is, right? They can't sue me for this because on the record that Canelo's failed 2 drug tests. It's on the record that Oscar Valdez has now failed a drugs test. It's on the record that Luis Neri, who was formerly of Eddie Reynoso, he's failed a drugs test. It's on the record that Cesar Martinez has failed a drugs test. So that is actually a statement of fact. We can't get sued for that. I can go out in the street, walk around with a placard saying Canelo is a cheat. Nobody can't do me nothing legally. He's a cheat. You know what my problem is, right, Shane, is that he doesn't get called out for it. And that's one of the reasons why when Billy Joe Saunders, you could say what you want about Billy Joe, yeah? But one of the things I actually quite admired about Billy Joe Saunders is that unlike some of the other opponents, like Callum Smith and all them man who was keeping quiet and all that, he kept going out, yeah, Mexican meat, yeah, Mexican meat. You know what I mean? He was putting it out there.
You know what? And a lot of people have been saying, oh, maybe he just got caught this time. Listen, Daria, this is what I say. If I'm going to take a drug, I'm going to take a drug for a big fight. I'm not going to take it for a tick-over fight. There's no way you can tell me that he wasn't on juice for the Bachot fight, bro. Because why would I take a drug for a guy I know I'm going to beat? I'm going to take a drug for a guy that's supposedly I'm the underdog against. You see my point?
Mm-hmm. It makes me look at that Burchelt fight. It makes me look at that fight again. Like,
it's been funny, right? But how would you feel right now? Try and put yourself in Miguel Burchelt's position right now. Not only did you lose your title in such devastating fashion, you could have got killed that night. You saw the way the guy was prostrate on the floor. They were calling that knockout of the year.
Yep.
Now, you're not going to tell me that Miguel Burchelt is just say, yeah, but, you know, it's only a diuretic. Like, come on. Someone's going to, listen, seriously, someone, you know what I mean? I don't like to predict this, but we all know it's going to happen. It may have even happened already, for all we know. You know what boxing's like? There could have been cover-ups. Somebody somewhere is going to get knocked out or be in a fight with one of these guys that are fucking juiced up to the eyeballs, and there's going to be a real consequence to this. And then what's going to happen? People are going to get sued left, right, and center, and probably boxing will probably go into terminal decline. So, you know, it's all right when we're here laughing and joking, and I'm making jokes about herbal tea and all the rest of it. It's all good, but there's a very serious side to this, man. And forget about that for 1 second. The whole integrity of the sport is called into question. And like I said, we are one of the very few sports in the world where the flagship, the poster boy of the sport is a fucking drug street and nobody does nothing about it. And that's why I've always said, I've been true to my word. I said, for me, Terence Crawford is the pound for pound #1 in the world, right? I truly believe that. And one of the reasons that I give when I say that a lot of people don't always, you know what I mean, take it to its proper meaning. They say, oh, you're hating on Canelo. It's because he's Mexican, this and that. No, it's because I will not acknowledge somebody who is a proven drugs cheat as my #1 fighter. I can't do it.
Conrad has put a comment here. He's put, look at boxing social media. People make up excuses for it's disgusting right now. I see Eddie Reynoso as well. Let me just say, I thought he would keep a low profile with what's going on at the moment. You know what I mean? Like, I thought he'd keep a bit of a low profile, but I saw Devin Haney tweet out. He didn't at Reynoso. He just spoke about him, saying that the gym was full of it. And I see Eddie Reynoso, oh, you jealous this or haters this and stuff like that. I'm just like, yo, man, show a bit of dignity. Do you know what I mean? Your fighter just got busted.
Look at Bomax gym. Look how much fighters have come out of Bomax gym. None of them have tested positive. And I'll say this: Terence Crawford takes VADA testing for most of his fights, and he's never been tested positive. So does Herring, and so does Shakur, and who's the other dude that come out that and Hooker. All of those dudes take VADA testing, and they're all part of the same camp. None of them have failed a drug test.
So while we're on that, shout out to people like Devin Haney and Jamel Herring. You know, I mean, fighters who have got some nuts about them to call this stuff out and say, look, you man.
If you look underneath the comments of those fighters on Twitter, like what Conrad said, it's disgusting. People just like, oh yeah, but you black guys do it too. You know, I'm just like, yo, this is why boxing is where it's at, because like there's no accountability. You got people that are defending a drugs cheat. Do you know what I mean? Like just because he's a Mexican or just because he's their favorite fighter.
Listen,
like, it's ridiculous.
I was once a big fan of Shane Mosley. Yeah, Daryl will tell you. I remember once before social media, when it was all written publications, and I remember writing to Shane Mosley asking him about his power boxing. Remember that, Daryl? You would have been a little kid then. You know what I mean? I used to really admire Shane Mosley. You see, when I found out about him being ensconced in that whole Balco scandal, I went off that guy completely, bro. I'm being honest. I just couldn't take him seriously again after that. He went from a guy that was very high up, in my opinion, to a guy I didn't care about anymore, because I was being sold a lie, as far as I'm concerned. When I used to see him with all this speed and power and this whole power boxing phenomenon, I thought, you know what? Even listen, he's still a good fighter, great fighter, just like Canelo, great fighter. But I cannot believe you, bro, because you've shown me that you're a cheat. And once you show me that if you're going to cheat once and twice, you're probably cheating you've been probably cheating for years. How can I believe anything you say or do? I went straight, Daryl will tell you, Shane, I went straight off Shane Mosley. Because I remember that came out after the second Oscar De La Hoya fight, the rematch, which a lot of people thought he lost as well, by the way. But as soon as he got ensconced in that Balco scandal, and then he lied about it, oh, I never knowingly took anything and this and that. That clear and cream is something that you have to administer by rubbing on your body. So you're telling me you didn't know what was in that? I just went off the guy, and still to this day, I regard him as a very good fighter, but he's not somebody I look up to anymore. No, cheat. Can't do it.
Shane, you want to get a last say on this whole situation here? As of right now, let me just say that there's no confirmed cancellation of the fight at the moment. It's still happening, but it's currently under review. No B sample yet, but as of right now, yeah, he's been tested positive, and at the moment the fight's up in the air. So, Shane, do you want to close out on this?
Yeah, I'll just say as fans, this is something that I said the other day. I feel like we can't really rely on governing bodies to make decisions, because they won't. They're just going to make it in their best interest. We see literally Pascal and Gerald Miller, they're literally outcasted out of the sport, but rightfully so. But then you got someone like Oscar Valdez, who's potentially still going to fight. I mean, I don't need to go into the hypocrisy there, but the truth is, me personally, if I see a red flag, I'm calling it. From the moment I've met Laurie, he's always spoken about Pacquiao. And it's the same thing when you say Pacquiao's never failed a drugs test, but I can see red flags. Just like people could see red flags with Gerald Miller, just like people could see red flags with Canelo, just like people, I can see red flags. So I'm not going to wait until I see someone. If I feel like something skeptical, we just got to call it out. And I feel like people who defend him or defend people who fail drugs tests, really and truly, it's just sad, because I don't think, it's not even like these dudes are denying it. They're just coming up with excuses for why they failed the drugs test. And that's the most important, that's the worst thing. Like, how much people do you know put their hands up and say I was wrong?
I think the only guy that I know in recent memory that's admitted that he took drugs purposefully was a British guy, a heavyweight called from a few years ago, Larry Olubamiwi.
Oh, yeah. I remember him.
Yeah.
I remember him.
He's about the only one I know. And while you talk about Pacquiao, I've had a serious issue with Pacquiao, because Manny Pacquiao is one of the biggest frauds in boxing. Because not just I'm gonna talk the business, bro. I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate from people, but I don't care, because Pacquiao is a great fighter. That's beyond dispute. However, he's got another side to his character that very few people want to recognize. This is a man that for years has dodged drug testing. His name's been associated with taking drugs. Fighters have come out and openly, blatantly accused him of taking drugs, right? So there's always been that sort of dark cloud hanging over him, yeah? And if you remember, going back to when he fought Floyd in 2015, they'd tried to make that fight 5 years previous to that. You know why they couldn't make that fight? Because Manny Pacquiao would not submit to drug testing.
You know,
he was scared of needles. Yet if you look at his right arm, he's got about 5 tattoos on.
Let me just highlight like the problem with boxing right now, and I'll highlight this comment before I block him. But look at this here. Pacquiao's got lean body all the time. Meanwhile, black athletic bullies are shredded. Like, this is the sort of thing we're dealing with. This is the sort of thing that we're dealing with.
Okay,
people so like this guy.
I'll respond to this dude in literally one statement. His argument for why he didn't take Valdez testing has changed over the years. One, it was then where he said he didn't like needles. Then after that, he said, oh, because I'm a senator, I don't want to give away my location on a daily basis so people know where I am. Bro, this dude is the... And then he takes Valdez testing against Errol Spence, well, what was supposed to be against Errol Spence. And bro, he looked so trash in that Ugas fight. Literally trash, bro. Like, this guy never aged, and all of a sudden, he fought Ugas and he just looked like he's 100 years old. Like, I don't have to go outside to see if it's raining. I know red flags when I see it.
So this guy who's I don't know if he's making it in jest or what, but he's talking about shredded and this and that and lean athletes. Hang on a minute, wasn't Lance Armstrong? He's very lean, skinny almost, and yet he was full of EPO and all sorts of other drugs. So what? Anyway, forget about that guy because I don't know if he's trolling us or what. But
I've taken him out. Because I ain't got time for BS.
It's really funny. He might have been trolling. I don't know. But listen, like I said, with Manny Pacquiao. Look at the Thurman fight. He was out of boxing for 2 years. He came back. No drug testing. Thurman foolishly accepted it because A, he thought he beat Manny, and B, the money was probably too good for him to turn down. What happened to him? He lost. After the fight, what did Thurman say? I wish I'd have had drug testing for my fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That means that straight away, that's Thurman telling you that he believes he was cheated, but it's too late for him now. He's already got that L on his record. That's
and before we move to the next topic here, I just want to say Eddie Hearn is just so amazing. Like, this dude. I mean, if you look at it,
Eddie Hearn called Canelo a cheat and then went on to promote him. Look at some
and he promotes Julio Cesar Martinez as well. I was just about to say he promotes 2 of those dudes, and he said he'll never promote a dude who he believes is for the drugs test.
And Eddie Hearn, he's the same man that was bawling, crying eye water when Patrick Day died, yeah?
Literally.
They fought Charles Conwell, and I'm not suggesting for 1 second that Charles Conwell was doing anything untoward. But just to show you the hypocrisy of Eddie Hearn, he cried on camera when Patrick Day unfortunately lost his life. Now, you imagine if Canelo knocks out somebody in his next fight or wherever, right? And that person suffers some kind of serious brain injury in it. And Eddie Hearn's promoting him. What's he going to do then? A hypocrite.
Well, we've already seen it.
And that's what's the problem in this sport. It's full of hypocrites.
But we've already seen it. Billy Joe Saunders is supposedly retiring. He could have gone blind, and Canelo didn't take any VADA testing, or according to VADA, he didn't take any VADA testing for that fight against Saunders. So he could have blinded Saunders, and we don't know what this dude's on.
Listen, the Saint Canelo, the man who couldn't knock out Matthew Hatton, right? But yet still he's bludgeoning Sergey Kovalev half to death, a light heavyweight.
I will leave it there. I will leave it there for that topic, because we got to move on to some other topics today. But like, yeah, I think the point has definitely been made. Very skeptical about all of this.
No, I'm not skeptical, Daryl. Oscar Valdez is a fucking cheat, and so are most of those Reynoso guys at the gym. Let's not hide behind words. Let's not hide behind words like skeptical and dubious and doubtful and suspicious. No. Now we know that gym is predominantly cheaters. And Ryan Garcia and Andy Ruiz, I'm not accusing him straight up, but even their behavior is suspicious. Like Shane said, all of a sudden, this guy's been like he's been for years, within a few months of him at the Reynoso gym, look at him. You know what I mean? All man's almost got a six-pack. Yeah, that's extra burpees and sit-ups. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, mate. Yeah. That's the extra long run he's been doing with Canelo and all the high altitude training. Yeah, whatever, man. Fucking cheats. That's what they are.
Let's get on to last weekend's action, man, because there was some there was some action over here in Birmingham, and there was some action over there in the United States. We'll quickly touch on that. But I wanted to talk about the Akeem Ennis-Brown and Sam Maxwell fight, because you know what? Yeah, like the main event. Let's start off with that before we go on to some of the undercard fights. I was astonished. Carl Frampton was astonished. You was astonished at that decision. I'm watching the fight, and listen, Akeem Ennis-Brown is not pretty to watch. Do you know what I mean? He can't punch very hard, but for me, it was pretty clear who won that fight with him and Sam Maxwell. For me, and I wanted Sam Maxwell to win. Let me feel. I wanted Sam Maxwell to win that, but like Akeem Ennis-Brown for me clearly won that fight. And then afterwards, man, like again, this is the sort of thing we get with judges. You know, Sam Maxwell got the decision. I was baffled by it. What was you two guys' thoughts about it?
You know what struck me about that fight, though, is that I remember this vividly. I was watching it, and I remember that after the fight, I see like Sam Maxwell's corner. They were like smiling and high fiving. I'm thinking, what are they celebrating for? Are they celebrating that he went the distance? But then, hang on a minute, Akeem Ennis-Brown's only got one stoppage on his record, so they can't be celebrating the fact that they've gone the distance. Remember a few years ago when Mikey Garcia fought Errol Spence, and after every round, he put his hand up like that. And people saying, why are you doing that? And then we kind of laughed and joked and said that must be because he was getting such a battering that he was congratulating himself because he got through another round. But anyway, so when the gloves and all that are being pulled off and they're waiting for the decision, I'm thinking, why is he celebrating? Because you lost clearly, bro. And then I'm starting to think maybe these guys know something that us, the viewers, don't know. Because I'm like, bro, you didn't even come close to winning that fight. And, you know, you're right, Daryl. Akeem Ennis-Brown, aesthetically, he's not the best to look at. He's a bit awkward. You know, I actually quite admire guys like that because there's more than one way to skin a cat. We don't all have to fight like Manny Pacquiao or you know what I mean, or anyone like that. You know what I mean? The styles make fights. And if this guy can't punch and he finds a way to win all his fights, you've got to give the man credit for that. Because that is really difficult, isn't it? You think all of his fights are pretty much going to go to points. So, and he's found a way to make his style work. So I actually give him credit for that. He may not be the best guy in the world to watch, but he don't run around the ring. It's movement. He throws his punches. He gets out of there. But he can be quite aggressive in spots. He won that fight by at least 4, 5, maybe even 6 rounds, bro. Trust me, there was a few even rounds where there weren't much. Because to be fair, Maxwell didn't know what he was doing in there. I was shocked at how bereft of ideas he was. Like, he would have seen videotape of Akeem Ennis-Brown and seen what he's like. You've got to find a way of closing the gap. Use your jab. Go to the body. Yes, I know it's probably harder when you get in there than what I'm saying. I get that. But then again, you're a professional. You were a top amateur. You were boasting before the fight saying, I fought Lomachenko before twice as an amateur. So if I fought Loma and I've dealt with that style, I can deal with Akeem Ennis-Brown. You said you were going to knock him out. You didn't come close. You didn't even hurt Akeem Ennis-Brown. And
Shane,
then
what's your thoughts?
when the decision was given, I was flabbergasted, man. Seriously, I was.
I didn't watch the fight live. I got updated by Laurie. Laurie, most of the fights when it happens, Laurie will message me through the fight. I didn't watch it live, unfortunately. I was supposed to be at that fight as well. I ended up getting the passes way too late. Like, it was obviously we have COVID stuff, so I ended up getting the passes way too late, so I couldn't make it to Birmingham. But when I didn't watch the fight till 12, I watched it to the 11th round, or was it the second to last round? I don't know if it was the 11th or 10th or 9th or whatever. I watched it to the second to last round, and when I watched it, I just thought, yeah, this fight is so one-sided. But I have to touch on it in a sense that I feel like we have to start wondering whether it's actually just incompetence. or it's outward biasness. Because the reason why I say that is because I've seen a lot of fights, whether it's in the UK, Eastern Europe, America, Mexico, whatever, and a lot of the times it's just outright incompetence. And in a case like this, I mean, I don't want to think that it's biasness, but how could you watch that fight and think that Maxwell won it? I don't think Maxwell's a good fight. I never thought Maxwell was a good fight. I thought that dude's trash. But at least he was, he was an honest fighter, so I respect that. But when I watched that, I think as a man, you should look within yourself and say, no, I lost that fight. Of course, you have to say that because you know you lost that fight. And I remember watching some fights and I'm thinking, okay, this is a close fight. This wasn't even close.
No.
This wasn't even close. This was. I feel like, honestly, and Laurie, you probably know more than me. What is the regulation to become a judge in boxing or referee? I want to know, because to me it seems that there's more safe barriers you have to jump over to become media than to even become a ref. Because literally they want to see, when like you apply for accreditation, you have to fill out all of this report. It literally, when you become a judge, all you need to do is write down your name and you're there. Literally, you don't even have to watch a boxing match. I mean, come on. There was one fight I saw where there's a ref on his phone during the fight. I mean, let's keep it real. These dudes, I feel like they write the rounds down before the fights even fall. I feel like they say 10-9, 10-9, 10-9.
I'm starting to think that some of these scorecards are filled out before the fight. Seriously.
Remember this happened with Adrian Broner when they gave Adrian Broner the first round, even though he didn't land one punch in the first round. I'm starting to feel like they're starting to do this before the fight scored. Like they're literally just putting 10-9, 10-9, 9-10, literally whenever they want, like it's Sudoku or something.
You know what it is, right? You can always say when there's been a robbery, right? Because me and Daryl on this show, we often talk about stuff like this. And I was saying to Daryl, right, and I've said it on his show a few times now, I said that the word robbery is one of the most overused words in boxing. And when I say that, I'm talking to these days, it seems that whenever a fight is close, a portion of fans, or if you wanted that particular person or thought that person would win, people come and say, oh, he was robbed. So I always try and stay away from the use of the word robbery, unless I think it fully applies. But in this case, man, this was blind robbery. I mean, this was some Dick Turpin stick-up shit, man. Seriously, because like Maxwell, I'm disappointed in him as well. After the fight, he was saying things like, oh, I didn't think it was that close. I was a clear winner. Look, come on, bro. You know you're lying, bro. You know what I mean?
Let me just say, Akeem Ennis-Brown carried himself with a bit of class as well. I mean, well, from what I saw, he wasn't like, you know what I mean? He had every reason to be visibly upset, but he didn't really act in a certain way, did he? Just walked out the ring, went back to his dressing room. He didn't kick off or nothing like that.
But I thought it was suspicious. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but if you look at that fight again, when the fight ends, you see Maxwell and his cornermen, they're celebrating, they're like in each other's ears and they're congratulating each other. And I'm like, what? Why are you congratulating each other? You lost.
But sometimes, though, I'll give you sometimes, like, and I remember this happened after the Golovkin-Canelo fight. Sometimes the judges do whisper the scorecards or their scorecard to a person, and it ends up reaching the corner. I don't know if that's true. But another thing I noticed, and Laurie and Daryl, do this next time you go to a fight, yeah. And Jeff was telling me because he went to a fight recently. When a fight's over, look, the judges just disappear into the abyss. Like you, there, no way to be found. Like for an interview or for anything, like literally, they're just hidden. And to me, I said, like in cricket, they do this thing where when they score, before they make a decision, they're actually on the mic and they're speaking about why they're making the decision. I feel like during a round, every single judge should be wired with a mic to say why they're scoring the round to a certain fighter. Literally, I feel like that's what they should do. Plus, they should change the seating for where judges are sitting, because I've been ringside before and I've seen fights where it's quite hard to see if a punch is landed or not landed because of how close you are. You literally can't see if it's off the glove or if it's actually off the body. Literally, it's very hard to see. So I feel like those are the two things that can actually improve like how judges score rounds.
I hear you,
what are the regulations? What are the regulations for being? Do you know the answer to that? to being a judge? Like, what do you
I
have?
know that they obviously have to apply, and I know that they get trained, because you know that there's the 4 tenets of scoring: effective aggression, ring generalship, punches landed, defense. So there are those 4 criteria that have to be applied. But the problem with boxing is, right, is it's a very subjective sport. Yeah. So no matter how much you train somebody and teach them what are the tenets or the criteria of scoring, at the end of the day, it's down to those guys. So there has to be some trust in those guys to carry out the criteria they apply. And for whatever reason, man, sometimes corruption, sometimes incompetence, maybe a combination of both, we don't get the fight scored the way they should be. You know what I mean? But yeah. I can understand if a fight is, because sometimes, you know, like a fighter can be rewarded for going forward, even though he's not actually landing punches. So, for example, even the weekend just gone, Paul-Woodley against Jake Paul, he was complaining.
Casemiro against Rigo.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good one. Forget about Jake Paul and Paul-Woodley. That was a good one. Casemiro is coming forward, but he's not landing the punches. Right, so you can't give him the round because you're coming forward, but you're not landing nothing. If anything, the other guy's landing on you. So I can't give you that round or give you the fight. But some people, it's just optics. They like to see a man coming forward because they think in their mind he's initiating the fight. He's being the aggressor. He's making the fight. But it's one thing to come forward, but if you're not landing any punches and you're not landing any meaningful punches, it means nothing. But some people, you know what I mean, they don't get that. They just think, yeah, well, he looks like he's the aggressor, so I'm giving it to him.
Stefan makes a good comment here. He's put, these judges need punishing, but nothing ever happens. That could potentially ruin Akeem's career. No promoter, not a fan-friendly style, and he'll be in the Who Needs Him club on the back of that loss. All facts.
I mean, do you guys remember Darryl Williams when he lost that?
Yep.
I think with the team Ennis Brown, it could be a combination of the fact that he hasn't got a fan-friendly style. And let's be honest, man. And I'm not saying the judges were guilty of this in this particular occasion, but I have heard stories of, listen, judges are human beings, and Akeem Brown had done some pretty stupid stuff in the lead up to this fight and made himself very unpopular. Could it be that subconsciously in the judge's mind that they just were turned off it? You know what I mean? That can happen. I've heard people say that. I remember when Bernard Hopkins fought Kawasaki and he made that comment about no white guy's going to beat me. Some people I know in America said to me that they honestly believe that that went against Bernard Hopkins, those racial comments that he made before the fight. Another case in point was Larry Holmes when he made those comments about Rocky Marciano couldn't carry my jockstrap when he tied with Marciano for the record. So if he'd have beaten Spinks, he would have beaten the record. Then he lost the fight. Or sorry, he would have tied with the record. He lost that fight by controversial decision to Michael Spinks. And a lot of people in boxing to this very day say that the main reason they think that Larry Holmes lost that fight was because of the way he carried on in the press conferences leading up to the fight and made him very unpopular. And at the end of the day, judges are human beings and they get screwed.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you guys remember Darryl Williams when he lost the fight on the WB World Boxing Super Series undercard? I don't remember if you guys even remember. This was a couple years ago. But he lost a controversial fight and it was real controversial. And literally, after that fight, he literally just, I don't even think he's fought since then. If he has, he hasn't had any mainstream fights. And it's very similar where you got a guy with a very unconventional style fighting. And I don't remember who he fought. Can't remember, but the dude who he fought is actually like a top contender in Britain, like for the British title. He might even be British champion at super middleweight. Conrad will be able to tell me because Conrad got good memory like that. But after that, he never ever had a big fight, and this can happen to him as well. Like this could happen right now. We can see Sam Maxwell go into major things, but he just like disappear into like darkness.
Yeah. But this point I'm making about people just wanting people to win because of who they are. I mean, like me and Darryl were talking about this last week. Do you know, Shane, that Dan Rafael scored that fight, Pacquiao Ugas? He scored it to Pacquiao. So if he was a judge in the fight, he would have awarded Pacquiao that fight. Now, I've got no reason to believe that he's got a personal dislike against Ugas. So I'm putting it down to the fact that he's just blinded by the celebrity of Manny Pacquiao. And that can happen as well, even at a local level. So they're looking at Maxwell. He's like the sort of favored guy. It's his promotion. You know, I mean, most of the fans in there are supporting him. And they've just gone down that road of, yeah, Maxwell, when really he lost that fight by a large amount of rounds, man. Like I said, at least 4, at least 3, maybe probably 4, 5, 6 rounds.
Let's go to the comments here. Nathan has replied to you, Shane, with this. He said Daryl Williams never boxed again after that loss.
That's my point.
There's too much politics in boxing.
He was young. He was like 26, 27. He won the fight clearly. I think it was against Jake Bull. He won the fight clearly, literally so clearly. And in all fairness to his opponent, his shoulder dislocated. And for the last 3 rounds, he couldn't fight. And Daryl Williams was just teeing off on him. And he still gave a fight against him. Yeah. And I read it once you read this comment, you see one thing about Robert Smith. Robert Smith is one of the most easily accessible people. Like when I was in university, he actually gave me an interview. So I'm not going to say anything negative against him. So shout out to Robert Smith.
Whoa, he's getting dissed here in the comments. Ian Hamilton has said here, have we ever noticed it's normally the same judges or refs? Same thing happens with football, that refs are never held up for much. Robert Smith never likes his refs being criticized. Stefan has said here, Robert Smith is an absolute helmet. The ego on that bloke is something else. He's a complete clown. And then he's put here against Zach Parker. So
I'm old enough to remember Robert Smith as a fighter. He used to call himself R.W. Smith. He actually fought and lost to Lloyd Hannigan. But anyway, that's a separate comment. He's the head of the British Boxing Board of Control. I mean, listen, he's got a duty of care to his employees. So he's bound to defend the referees because it's going to reflect badly on him if people are saying that they're grossly incompetent or worse still, that they're corrupt. So I can understand him taking that stance. But what he does need to do is make sure that those judges are properly trained and educated into what they're looking at. You know what I mean? And he's got to appoint people that he can trust to be fair. Because when you look at some of these fights, man, like the one on Saturday gone, you think to yourself, how could they get that so wrong? It wasn't even close. Like, even in the studio, all the guys, to a man, they all had
shocked. He was shocked. He couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was so shocked, right? I was so shocked that I was actually laughing. And I'm thinking, it's not really a laughing matter because, as one of your viewers correctly pointed out, this is real serious shit for someone like Akeem Ennis Brown, who's not the most marketable anyway. He's probably going to find it nigh on impossible to get a rematch. And let's face it, if he ain't got the belts, he might find it difficult to get fights because who's going to want to fight him? He's a nightmare to fight.
Yeah.
So there's serious repercussions in his career, both from a career perspective in terms of his record and financially. He's a professional fighter. He needs to fight.
Conrad has said here, should judges sit behind a screen instead of ringside? Would it make a difference?
Like I said, I think the difference is, man, you've got to have these guys have got to be trained in the rules, and their training should be, you know what I mean?
And I think both. I think
on a regular basis. You shouldn't just sit. You shouldn't just have like one course and then you're done. Hopefully, what they should do is call these guys and have refresher courses and keep them up to date with what's going on. Know how to judge different styles and stuff like that. I hope that's being done. Probably isn't, but that's what needs to happen, man. These guys need to be trained properly.
Go on, Shane.
I think both camps should pick the trainer as well. Like, they shouldn't be like just like, to me, I feel like some, not in the fight like this, but in some fights where you got Canelo fighting and you got like 3 Mexican judges. I mean, that stuff shouldn't be ever happening. You see my point? Like, there should be fairness when it comes down to the judges.
Yeah. Let's move on to
I just want to make this quick point. That's why I was surprised when Ugas beat Pacquiao, because I just never saw that guy getting the decision. I say to Daryl that Ugas is going into that fight, metaphorically speaking, he's 4 rounds down before the first bell even goes. Anyway, that's
well, thankfully the judges got it right on that front. I want to move on to the rest of the card there because there was some actually other fights that I was interested in. Anthony Yard was coming back, even though that was a blowout. Leon Woodstock, my boy, shout out to him, man. He lost to Anthony Kakachi on that fight. He got dropped in it and lost the unanimous points decision. And no shame in it at all. Kakachi's a very good fighter, man. But yeah, what was your thoughts on the rest of the card here? While I just read out this comment, DS has said the judges should be interviewed after the fights in the same way the fighters, trainers, and promoters are. It seems everyone is held to account apart from the judges. I totally agree. What was your thought?
Find them after a fight, though. You won't be able to find them.
They're gone. They're gone, bro. They're gone. But your thoughts on the rest of the card, man? Anthony Yard, first of all, and then Leon Woodstock and Kakachi.
I felt a bit sorry for Anthony Yard, man, because his opponent offered absolutely no resistance whatsoever. I remember I watched the whole card, and as soon as I saw that guy making his way to the ring and he took his robe off, and I saw the jiggles of the love handles on him, man, I thought this is going to be over and over very quickly. And so it proved. Whoever got that opponent for Anthony Yard actually done him a disservice.
Yeah, but how many times are we saying this for Yard?
You could see he was almost disgusted with it.
How many times are we saying this though? It seems to be just a never-ending cycle, don't you think, Shane?
I mean, I've been around Tunde, I've been around Yard before, and I just have to say, and I respect both of them because I actually like them. They're very pleasant people. But let's keep it real. When he stepped up against Kovalev, he lost. He stepped up against Arthur, he lost. I mean, we just have to call a spade and say, bro, this dude, maybe they just don't have confidence in him. Like, maybe they don't, because let's keep it real. If he takes one more loss, he's no longer this big prospect that everybody expected him to be. He's now just another bum in the shower, as Tyson Fury loves to say. Like, literally, he is literally one loss away, so they have to move him so carefully, literally so carefully, because on the flip side, you see someone who he was touted to fighting, Joshua Buatsi, and even Craig Richards to a certain degree, like they step up and they still can hang their head in like praise. He stepped up and it looked like he should have kept him at the level he was at before.
Well, looks like he's fighting Arthur.
I think you're being a bit harsh there, man. I think you're being a bit harsh. Now, listen.
Is he though?
Like I said, you're not telling me that Anthony Yard and Tunde requested that guy. Because I'm being honest, man.
Tunde's his manager.
No, but he's the promoter. He's not the matchmaker.
Yeah, but he surely would have he's got an oversight into who Anthony Yard fights as his manager.
But what happened to the rematch with Arthur? Why didn't that happen?
That's coming next. So we'll see.
I mean, Arthur is holding out, from what I understand about that fight. Arthur's holding out, which he's quite entitled to do so, for more money for that fight. Also, Arthur apparently was chasing a world title fight. So
I'm hearing that October's the date. If someone in the comments can confirm, but I'm hearing October is when they will have that rematch. Have to let you know.
I don't blame Anthony Yard exclusively for it. He can only fight who they put in front of him. I'm blaming the matchmaker, because that guy that they put in front of Anthony on Saturday was terrible. And I'm going to declare it a slight interest, because I've said it on the show before that I know Anthony Yard and I know Tunde, right? I'm not close friends with them. I don't speak to them every day, but you know what I mean? We're cordial with each other. Now, you could quite clearly see that when Anthony finished off that guy, he was disgusted because he wanted the work. He wants rounds. You don't want to fight guys like that. And in answer to your previous question, Shane, he's shown before. This is a man that stepped up, took on Kovalev, went to Russia, no less. How many British fighters do you know do something like that? So you can't accuse him of just fighting guys and sort of
I'll keep it real, yeah. When you
how many British fighters do you know that would go to Russia?
No, go on, Shane. Go on.
I'll explain, yeah. I will look at the BT stable and look at the prospects that they have coming up, or whatever you want to call them, fighters that they have coming up. Nobody has had such a padded resume like Anthony Yard. Nobody. Look at it. You can go through the list of fighters. Nobody's had that. After a certain level, they do get step-up fights, even if it's domestically. And let's keep it real, bro. He was the one who didn't want to fight at British level. He was the one. He was the one who wanted to
go. Why did he fight Linden after?
Because he already took a loss after that. I'm talking about before the Kovalev fight. He was the one who didn't want any of those. Remember, they could have fought so many British fighters, when they were on the way up and they were the number one prospect in the country. So after they lost, they decided to humble themselves and decide to take on British level fighters. But they could have taken. You're telling me they couldn't take on a Richards or Dan Aziz or like? Look how much dudes are in the at 175 that he could have fought. Look at Buatsi. You could have gone through the British level. He didn't want to take that route. He wanted to take the flashy world level route, and he realized he wasn't at that level yet.
His yards resume here, Laurie.
No. Listen, Shane makes some salient points, but I don't think you can accuse Anthony Yard and Tunde of just ducking serious competition, because, like I just gave you an example. There's 2 examples.
Yeah, but why didn't he fight? What's the guy's name?
You name me, right? You name me one.
What's the guy's name, man? The traveler.
Hold on. You name me one British fighter that's gone to Russia to take on an active world champion.
Yeah, but Laurie, how much money was being? There was a lot of money on that table, you know. I think they were quite clear about that as well.
He was a mandatory as well. It wasn't.
He can't have it both ways. You just said that he don't want to fight no one good, and then after that he fought Lyndon Arthur.
Okay, what happened with the traveler? What's his name again?
Buglioni.
No, not Buglioni. The other one.
What, Jose? Burton?
Yeah.
What about
Come on,
him?
man. He could have fought him, Laurie.
What happened to Buatsi when Eddie Hearn offered the Buatsi fight to Frank Warren? What happened then? That's what I want to know. He could have fought Buatsi.
Listen, I think you're being a bit harsh on Yard.
No, I think you're being a bit biased, Laurie.
You do.
Well, look here, Buglioni and Burton were both calling for Yard. Why didn't, come on, man, Tunde was openly saying, "Oh, we don't fight them guys there. We fight, but you'd rather fight someone else. You'd rather fight these foreign guys. You could have fought those type of guys, man." And
even Peters or something like that.
Going to Russia to fight Sergey Kovalev and then he beating him as well.
Well, Umar Sadiq went to Russia and he fought who did he fight? Chudanov or last year? He went to Russia. So shout out, he went to Russia and he didn't fight a world champion, but he fought at a good level. But
take on a work, because don't forget Anthony Yard could have gone a different route. And didn't. So you've got to give him credit. As much as you're decrying his choice of opponents up until that point, you can't say that the guy's scared to take on challenges, because
I'm not saying that he's scared. I'm not saying that he's scared, but look at this comment here. This is what I'm saying. The preparation for Kovalev was just non-existent with some of those guys that he was fighting. And DS is saying the same thing here. Yard needed to fight someone with a similar style with attributes to Lyndon Arthur. This was the worst preparation he could have had for the rematch.
I actually agree with that. And I said earlier on that this fight he had at the weekend done absolutely nothing for him. And as I said to you that you could see when he knocked the guy out, which was basically just a shot to the body. He didn't put any real power behind it. He just touched him up to the body. I just went down. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna quickly jump up and jump back on. 1 second.
No problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, I agree with you that fight did absolutely nothing for him, but I'm saying I'm putting it more down to the matchmakers. Yeah.
Conrad is saying here, if the rematch is really in October, then it makes sense to take on an easy job. Yeah, but that easy?
I don't expect him to take on anyone on Murderers Row, but I expected. He said it himself. He said, "I wanted to do some rounds." You could quite clearly see on Yard's face, and I don't think he was tapping. You could see he was disgusted when that guy went down. He hardly celebrated. He was embarrassed, as indeed we were watching it, thinking, "Oh, come on," you know what I mean? So,
do you know what I think? A lot of the opinion is now. If I'm being honest, I think a lot of people are just getting bored, man. I think the fight with Lyndon Arthur was fair play. It was a good fight, but I just think these type of fights, man, people are just losing interest in them. We're not getting a lot of fights anyway. Do you know what I mean? We're not getting these guys out every other month and that. So we're waiting a good 3-4 months for these guys to come out. And then when you've got fights like that, it's just yo, man, now I've got to wait another 3-4 months. So, to be fair, in Yard's defense, he did have a couple of fights pushed back, which wasn't his fault. But those opponents that he was fighting probably would have ended the same way.
Also, Daryl, you've got to factor into the equation that Yard is a big puncher, especially at that level. Maybe not at the top level. But when he's fighting guys at a certain lower level, he's just going to get them out of there. He's too strong. He hits too hard. He just overpowers man like that. So
but if you're a matchmaker, then ain't that your job then to find someone that's a bit more durable, that will prepare you for somebody like Bullioni and Burton? That would have been a good fight.
But Daryl, that is what I said earlier. I said I call into question the matchmaker for this fight, because if you say to fight Anthony Yard, fight AN other, he's gonna just say, yeah, okay. Most of them do anyway, unless you're someone like Canelo, who can clearly choose your own opponents and stuff. And then even then, you've seen what he does. Most of the guys are just going to say, who is it, when, how much am I getting? Those are the kind of typical questions they're going to ask. They're not going to it's only afterwards they're going to look into the guy's record and see how good or bad he is or whatever. He's just going to want to fight to get out there before the Linden Alpha. But I actually feel that fight on Saturday did him absolutely no favors at all. I'm sure he's had much harder sparring, and to go all the way there, go through that training camp to get less than a couple of minutes work, he's probably thinking, wow, this is a waste of time, really. Apart from the fact that he got another so-called highlight reel knockout, he probably got well paid. But other than that, from a professional point of view, from a career standpoint, he didn't really serve much purpose.
I'll quickly move on from Yard here. Stefan says Yard really needs to win that rematch. A loss will be very damaging to him. Conrad agrees. He said that what matters is Yard that wins. I totally agree. At the end of the day, what really matters is Yard winning that rematch. I hope it happens. And, there's been a bit of needle between them two now. I don't know if you saw Lyndon Arthur in Bugsy Malone's video, where there was a little diss to Anthony Yard up in there, and I see Lyndon Arthur kind of stunting on him. So, there's a little bit of context now. I want to see that rematch, man. I hope we do. Do you know what I mean? Lyndon Arthur.
All what you said there with what's going on with Yard and Arthur and the so-called this and all that makes it good, because that hypes it up for when they do fight later on in the year.
WM has said here, I bumped into Lyndon Arthur in a restaurant last night. He was a bit rude. I hope Yard sparks him out.
Well, you know what?
He don't seem very approachable, does he, Lyndon Arthur?
All I say about Lyndon, it is what it is, isn't it? It is what it is. That's all he seems to say. But listen, man, I've never met Lyndon Arthur, but I have met Pat Barrett a couple of times. And Pat Barrett's a proper nice guy and a respectful guy as well. And a real boxing, thoroughbred, you know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, I've never met Lyndon. But listen, a lot of these boxers and sportsmen in general, if you catch them on a wrong day, they can come across as quite rude and abrupt and whatever. So that's unfortunate that happened, but we like to believe that maybe that was a one-off, and maybe you caught him on a bad day.
Yeah. Last comment here on Yard. Stefan says Yard is clearly the light heavyweight that Rowan is all in on, more so than Arthur and Johnson. Yeah, I'll probably have to agree with that as well. The other fight,
the Arthur thing as well. I remember I've met Floyd Mayweather in my lifetime 3 times. Twice he was fine. Once he was really good, actually, signing autographs, meeting with fans. The second time he was okay as well. And then the third time I met him, I was with an ex-girlfriend of mine, and she thought he was super arrogant and not a very nice person at all. So yeah, sometimes you can catch you wrong day.
Finally, just your thoughts on Anthony Cacace against Leon Woodstock.
You know what? Excellent fight. Credit to both guys. Leon Woodstock, man, he
tough
showed
as hell.
The lineup, you know what I mean? But I have to say, man, that Cacace, I was proper impressed with him, man. Real good fight. Like to see more of him. I mean, I remember on the night Carl Frampton was bigging him up, and I was thinking to myself, well, is he saying this because him and the guy are friends and they're both Irish and all the rest of it? But I have to say, man, what Carl Frampton said in his initial analysis, he was spot on. In fact, Cacace was probably better than what Frampton described. I was proper impressed with him. And there's no shame in losing that fight. He's not done. He just came up against a guy that night that was physically more gifted than him. He was more taller, longer arms, quicker. But it wasn't just the physical attributes. Kakachi is a seriously good boxer as well. And I fancy him to beat Archie Sharp for sure.
I hope he does.
Leon will come back. He's not done. He's still a good fighter. Shout out to Leon Walker.
Quickly, we'll jump on the Jake Paul, Tyron Woodley show. Mainly, I'll speak about, you know, like Daniel Dubois and Tommy Fury were making their American debuts on that show. And Daniel Dubois, sorry, you know, very predictable, similar to Anthony Yard, just blitzed the guy out there in the first round. It's the same thing with Daniel Dubois, really. Blitzed the guy out there. So nothing really, didn't really learn anything in that fight. Tommy Fury, that was a scrappy fight. That wasn't impressive at all. You know what? A lot of people were saying to me, like, who would actually win between Tommy Fury and Jake Paul? Like, it's not cut and dry as to who would win that.
Before, didn't I? I said that to you before that to me, Tommy Fury and Jake Paul are in the same boat. If anything, from what I've seen, Jake Paul's opponents have been pretty horrible up until this last fight. But then so have Tommy Fury's. So to me, they're about the same, because everyone so far that Tommy Fury's beaten, I reckon Jake Paul could beat, and everyone that Jake Paul's beaten is the same. Tommy Fury probably beat them as well. And in terms of aesthetics, looking at the two of them, neither of them look that good. I've got to keep it real. And in fact, Tommy, what's his name? Jake Paul, he's had a lot less boxing experience than Tommy Fury. And looking at the two of them, technically, they don't look too far apart, if I'm being honest. So I don't rate Tommy Fury at all, man. Like I said to you last week in the show, the first time that guy meets someone even half decent, he's going to get embarrassed and beaten.
Some people were saying that, you know, Tyron Woodley deserved the decision against Jake Paul. I didn't think so. I thought that Jake Paul did enough to win, even though he was rocked in that fourth round. I thought that Tyron Woodley just didn't do enough afterwards to you know, to get the win on the scorecard. So yeah, you agree with that as well?
I agree. He didn't do enough. He was coming. It's another one of those scenarios, isn't it, where a man's coming forward, loading up, he landed the odd good shot, but what happens between the moments when you didn't, you know what I mean, land those big shots? He wasn't doing enough. And Jake Paul wasn't very convincing either. He was skitting around the ring, flicking out jabs here and there. It was pretty poor quality, to be honest. But then maybe we shouldn't judge them off that stand. See, that's the problem when you get two guys like that headlining a show of this magnitude and they're clearly not up to it, you know what I mean? But you know what? In fairness to Jake Paul, it was a highly publicized fight. Apparently the pay-per-view numbers are supposed to be very good. Another instance where I've got to give Jake Paul credit is that apparently it was his show, and apparently all the fighters on the card got pretty well paid. I think they said the majority of their fighters on that card received their highest paydays. Even, you know what I mean, some of the lower guys on the undercard were saying that it was the highest payday they'd received to date. So when you look at things from that perspective, yeah, I mean, Jake Paul is doing some positive things for boxing. Despite the initial reluctance of many to take him seriously, there are positives arising from what he's doing.
My final word on this would be that, listen, like what you're saying there, like Jake Paul, he divides opinion among the boxing community. A lot of the hardcores can't stand him. I'm not a big fan of him, to be honest, but I do respect, you know, he came into this game and he's milking it for what it is, because the sport's in disarray and you have to blame the fighters, man. Not just the fighters, you have to blame them, the promoters, and everybody involved in boxing for us being in the situation that we're in right now. Because if they got their shit together, then people like Jake Paul wouldn't be a problem. If people like Terence Crawford and Errol Spence actually fought, we'd have these sort of big fights to look forward to where we wouldn't even be caring about what Jake Paul's doing. But because we're just so devout of action right now, he's come in the game, he's milking it, he's earning from it. And a lot of these guys are jealous, man. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, if we clean up our own house and get our own shit together, then I honestly think that people like Jake Paul, it wouldn't be as much of a factor as it is. But we have to blame all the boxing for being in this mess, and Jake Paul's just exploiting it.
I couldn't have articulated it any better myself. Plus, there was a couple of good fights on the undercard there in that fight. And Berenchik, what's the Montana Love fight was a very good fight.
Branch, yeah.
On the undercard, he's former Olympian. He looked good as well. And I was told that Amanda Serrano looked good as well. I didn't see all of it. I just saw some brief highlights. So the undercard for that fight at the weekend was a lot better than some of Eddie's and Frank's, where you get undercards where it's just one round blowouts all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Diaz has said here, Jake Paul took slightly less. Yeah, so basically said what you're saying there. Yeah, shout out to him. Shout out to him for that, man.
I mean, give him some credit, man. I mean, at the end of the day, take away all the bluster, but the man's put on, and not only that as well, what also impressed me is that he had that fight in his hometown, yeah, and he put, so he could have fought in Vegas or LA where he's based, but he put the fight on in Cleveland where he's from in America, and he also had on the undercard guys from Cleveland on the undercard, Conwell and people like that, and Montana Love. They're all Cleveland or Midwest American fighters. So he's given them a stage, and they performed. Yeah. So, like I said, there was more than half that card that have gone on the record as saying that they earned more for that fight than they've ever earned in their careers in a single fight. And I think even Tyrone Woodley, he was a bit loath to admit it in some of the pre-match, in the pre-fight interviews. But apparently he got way more for this fight than he'd ever earned in his MMA career. And when you think about it, I think he's a 4 or 5-time champion MMA. So, you know, he's obviously done well out of it, which is another reason why he's lusting after a rematch.
Yeah. Let's move on, because I'm conscious of timing, and there's still a few topics I want to get on to talk to you about, man. Starting off with this weekend. You know, we've got a big show. Say that again.
So we don't want to cheat time now, do we?
Nah. But listen, look, we've got a big show in Leeds this weekend. Josh Warrington against Lara 2. Very looking forward to that. The undercard has got Conor Benn against Adrian Granados. We got your girl on there as well. Ebony Bridges on there. Katie Taylor's on there. So, you know, what do you make of the show? Are you looking forward to the main event?
I was going to say, hopefully it's drug-free, but, you know, I don't know what gym Lara's been training out of. I hope he's not been training out of the Reynoso gym. No, but, you know, I shouldn't say that, because not all Mexicans or Mexicans.
No.
It would be wrong, so I'll take that joke back. But, yeah, on a serious note, I am very much looking forward to this fight. I'm looking forward to seeing Conor Benn again, and he's in with a credible opponent, Granados. Yes, Granados is probably not what he was when he was fighting Broner and people like that. But he's still a live opponent, in my view. Well, he's certainly on paper, he is. And he will bring certain things to the table that Conor's probably not dealt with before in terms of experience and guile and stuff like that. He's a different type of fighter to Formella. And who's the guy who fought in his last fight? Sanchez, wasn't it? Something like that. The guy who fought Amir Khan. So he will bring a different set of problems. And I'm hoping that it's competitive and that Conor has to dig into his bag of tricks, because I've been describing Conor as, I think I said before on one of your shows that he was one of, if not the most improved fighters in Britain. When you think of how far he's come from when he fighted, and he was very raw, he was just basically just throwing haymakers from everywhere, and they weren't necessarily landing, and he was trying too hard to be like his dad. But now he's settled down. He's got an excellent jab. He throws good combinations. And what I like about him, man, if he tags somebody, he's looking to get them out of there. He fights with a certain spitefulness that we all find very entertaining. And his overall skill set is good, man. He looks good. I have to say he looks good. Definitely one of the most improved fighters in the country. And then, of course, in the main fight there is a rematch between Lara and Warrington. And I'm really intrigued to see how that goes, man. Was it a bad night at the office for Warrington, as he's been telling us in the build-up to this fight? I saw an interview with him where he was saying that, you know, I mean, he feels that subconsciously he overlooked Lara. He didn't mean to do it, but subconsciously he did. And he was thinking ahead. And then what with the COVID and no fans there, he said he just got caught in a bad space at that time. That could well be true. I mean, I know he's putting forth the usual excuses, but if you looked at Lara's record before he fought Josh Warrington, there's no way, well, not many people would have predicted that outcome. So I can understand that when Warrington, although he took a bit of a bashing, he probably went home and weighed it all up and thought, you know, I'm better than this, man. I can beat this guy. I did certain things wrong in the lead up to that last fight, or I wasn't as meticulous and I didn't do my due diligence the way I should have done. So I'll have another crack at it. So yeah, man. I mean, when he first lost, I was like, no, I'm going there again with that guy. But, you know, time is a healer. And, you know what I mean? You look back and with hindsight, you think, yeah, I could have done better. That's obviously what he's done. And lo and behold, we're here. So this is a big, big night for him in his career, because if he loses this, especially if he loses badly, if he gets knocked out or dropped and stopped and all the rest of it, it's difficult to see a way back for him, especially at the top level. But if he wins, man, he's got his career back on track.
WM has said here, have I missed the Dillian White next talk or yet to done? Now we'll discuss that. I'm going on to that next. But I think you're a bit more positive about this main event than I am, because I'm like Harvey here. I'm conflicted because I'll tell you why, Laurie. Yeah, Josh Warrington is going to be fighting in front of thousands of his Leeds faithful. When he gets on that stage and he makes his ring, he's going, you know what he's like before you go. He's pumped. He's full of energy. He's ready to get in there and have a tear up. We saw what happened when he tried to get into a tear up with Maurizio Lara last time. He got brutally beaten by him. Is he going to be doing? Will he make the same mistakes again? Will his energy and will his emotions take over him, and he gets dragged into that sort of fight with Maurizio Lara, who really took him to the cleaners in that sort of fight there? I don't know. I'm not as positive as you are. I'm not saying he's going to lose it, but he's going to have to be very disciplined on this main event here. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure how this goes. I'm bringing Shane back in to the chat as well. But
where
I'm not sure about the main event.
No, we're talking about Josh Warrington and Lara. But what I was about to say before Shane comes in is that you are right, Darryl. But I just think that, listen, we saw it with Anthony Joshua, right? As a recent example. Josh Warrington at this stage of his career, he's no spring chicken now. He's been in the game a while. He's experienced. He was also a very good amateur. He's had 30 plus fights. He's 30 years old or whatever. He's got to be able to deploy a different game plan, because like you said, if he tries to go out there and engage too early with this guy, he's probably going to get beaten again. But what I did notice about Lara in that last fight was that he was a bit wild and a bit reckless, and you know what I mean? So if Warrington can negotiate the early rounds, pick up points and keep himself in the fight, you would like to think that over the course of 12 rounds, his experience, his greater skill set, the fact that he's at home, he's probably going to have the judges on his side, let's be honest. If he can win this fight on points, but he's got to be, his approach has got to be slightly different, like you said. So I'm kind of backing him that he will do that. And
can he do it for 12? Can he disengage for 12 rounds against Lara? Because like a lot of people in the comments are saying the same sort of thing. He shouldn't engage with Lara. Will the crowd, you know, get him emotional and drag him into a tear up? Like, what do you think, Shane? What do you reckon about this main event?
I have a red flag for which is consistent in every fight when I hear something. When I hear a fighter talk about retirement before a fight, I always see that as a red flag. And he said, and I remember this, he was saying, if I can't beat Lara, I might as well retire. In my opinion, the only reason why you will say that is because you must be you don't retire when you're at your peak. You must be seeing something in camp which is making you question yourself, because you don't say that if you're peaking. You don't say, oh, I'm going to retire. You say that when you see certain stuff that you realize, I was doing better back in the day, or I was doing better in my last camp or the camp before. You're seeing regression. That's why you would say something like that. To me, I feel like he's gonna win on points, but I don't think it's gonna come without controversy, because I feel like he's gonna look at it as all I need to do is run, and he's gonna run a lot. And I don't think the dude he's fighting has got great cut down game, so he's probably gonna get a nice little controversial win, and then he ain't gonna try and fight no one at the higher level. But I feel like a red flag is, though, if he loses, don't be surprised if you start hearing the excuses. Oh, I'm just not what I used to be, and all of that stuff. Basically, what you heard most of the British fighters say when they lose.
Yeah, that's true up to a point. I mean, listen, like I said, I don't think it's a matter of disengaging. I think it's a matter of not engaging too much too soon. So if you remember in that first fight, I watched it back the other day. He came out there, and for some reason, Josh Warrington was trying to style himself as like some puncher, some super aggressive guy.
He was getting lit up, man.
Yeah, he put it down to the fact that he wanted to start fast and make a dent in the guy. Fair enough. He probably underestimated Lara. That's what I'm saying. This time, he's got to be able to show another side to his game. Has he got that? Now, listen, he's 30 years old. He's had 31 fights. He's got vast experience. You know what I mean? He was a good amateur as well, right? The likes of the guys he's beaten, I'm sure, are better than Lara is. He's beaten Kid Galahad. He's beaten Carl Frampton. He's beaten Kiko Martinez. He's beaten Rendon Monroe. He's beaten Lee Selby. All these guys are good fighters. Even Dennis Sealand, the Danish guy beat, was a well-touted guy. So he has the skill set to win, but can he go in there and box to a slightly different game plan? I'm saying that on this night, knowing that his career's on the line, I think he will try and do that, and I think he'll probably edge out a point swing.
Shane, final prediction?
This the final word of the live, or just the final prediction?
No, prediction on this fight. So before we move on.
No, I think Warrington wins. I think Warrington wins on points.
I don't know, man. I'm not. I'm on the fence. I'm on the fence, man, because that first fight was very conclusive, man. The retirement talk.
Did you not think that he looked a bit wild, though?
Yeah, he was very wild, but you know, it worked for him.
Jeff presumes that Lara is on the juice. Jeff has said he wants him tested. That's what Jeff said. He wanted him tested.
Man, boy, bro.
I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to this show.
We started.
I think Warrington will. I think he'll find a way to win, especially at home in front of his faithful. But I will not be surprised if Lara wins again. Like, I wouldn't be surprised.
I'll find it funny.
Because Laura, you mentioned those names, yeah, but you know when it's gone, it's gone. Do you know what I mean? And why is the retirement talk coming out? Must be for a reason.
No, I think he's just being realistic, man. Because if he does lose, like I said earlier on, if he loses to this guy, especially if he gets pumped the way he did last time, there really is no way back. And to be fair as well to Warrington, he's got to accept his share of the blame for this. Because if you remember rightly, before he fought Lara, he was getting called out by the likes of Jamel Herring and Shakur Stevenson, and he didn't seem to want those fights. You know what I mean? He wanted Jimmy Can, which, you know, in hindsight, that would have been a nice, easy fight for him.
Yeah, he knew what he was looking at there.
Yeah.
But he didn't want Navarrete either.
So when Lara's name come up, he probably thought, you know, yeah, man, I'll have some of that. Beat up a Mexican, I'll be able to say, yeah, I'll beat. But he ran into a bit of a gale force. Slightly reminiscent of a certain Martinez who fought Charlie Edwards, don't you think? And now we know what happened there.
Let's move on. let's move on to Dillian White before we get on to the Sky and the Boxer announcement there. And then we'll end it for today. Yeah, Dillian White, yeah. Another one that's popped. Yeah, another one. But Dillian White, it was announced, I want your opinions on this very quickly, but Dillian White has been announced that he'll be returning on October the 30th. No opponent announced yet, but it's looking like it will be out of 3 people. Those 3 people are Chris Arreola, Jermaine Franklin, and who's the other one? Charles Martin. Those are the least 3 potential opponents that Dillian White could be fighting on October the 30th. Laurie, if you had to pick one of them opponents, who would you pick?
What, if I'm Dillian or if I'm a fan?
No, as a fan.
I'll probably pick Charles Martin, to be honest.
Yeah.
Arreola, I know he did perform creditably against Andy Ruiz, but it was still a losing performance. And but Charles Martin, there's something of intrigue there in it, because he came here and he got bashed up by Anthony Joshua, as we all know, despite promising to walk the earth like a god. He got absolutely smashed, didn't he? But then, to be fair to him, man, he's gone away and he's kind of rebuilt his career, and he's had a couple of half decent wins, and he's coming in. He will be coming into this fight with a bit of form. So I think from a marketing perspective, I think probably Charles Mine. I still fancy Dillian to beat him, but then I fancy him to beat Ariola and the other guy as well. So, you know.
Shane?
Personally, I'm disappointed at the fight. Remember, it was supposed to be in America. I'm disappointed that it's in the UK because I thought like, and I speak to a lot of American fight fans, they just don't have the interest in Dillian Whyte that we have. And I just feel like with his personality, he'll be controversial, and he might be able to get a bit of attention in America, especially with the whole Wilder Fury situation going on. It's just been a good thing to see. Now he's fighting in the UK. I just feel like that's a bit safe. I don't really and truly who he fights. I mean, personally, I just want to see this dude fight for a world title. I'll keep it real. Like, outside of that, we've seen him take tough fights. We've seen him take losses. The fact that he's gone through his whole career and he's not had one title fight, I just feel that's a bit bad, man.
Yeah. I want to see him in there. I mean, some of those, but some people will come back to you and say, look, he could have had a title fight against AJ, but he turned it down.
Yeah, but they were offering it. The money that they were offering wasn't right. So
yeah, I'm just playing devil's advocate, but yeah, I mean, I just want White to get that. This whole WBC saga's dragged on for too long now. Hopefully, we get to see Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder fight in October, and then maybe we'll get some more clarity after that. But who knows?
Can I ask Shane a question at this point? Because Shane is a boxing journalist with insider knowledge on things like this.
Go ahead.
What happened to this B sample from Dillian? Where is it?
So,
and what's happening with it?
I'll explain. So basically, at the time, and I'll say this in simple terms, and I know this for a fact. At the time, he got tested for something, and then he had two.
Did he fail the test?
According to the WBC, to the British Boxing Board of Control, he didn't fail a test. He had some form of, I don't even know what to call it, like a sample that wasn't taken correctly or whatever. I don't know what to call it. But apparently there was some anomalies in the test.
Did he fail or not?
No, he didn't.
With respect.
According to,
you either pass the test or you fail it.
So the answer's no. The answer's no, he didn't fail it.
He failed it.
No, he didn't.
Right,
according to the people who took the test, he didn't fail the test. No.
So why haven't we seen the B sample?
Because as I was trying to explain was before they had either a hearing where he presented tests that he took they could do a B sample. There was two options. Because of the time, it takes 48 hours for them to do a B sample. This was 24 hours before a fight. So what they did was they decided to go for a hearing, and the British Boxing Board of Control said that's fine if you present enough evidence to prove that you're clean, which supposedly he did. And this is what I've been told.
Supposedly.
That's why he was through. That's what I was told.
Now, my question to you, Shane, if this would have been Guadalajara or New Mexico this time, we wouldn't be looking at it like that, would we?
I'm not saying that. You asked me.
Dillian,
I don't believe that.
Let me say this. Dillian, I like Dillian. I mean, Dillian's of Jamaican extraction, the same as me, you, and Daryl. So, you know, we always ride for the Jamaican Yardie fighters. Yeah. But let's keep it 100, man. There's a lot of suspicion about that test.
But I'm not saying I believe it. You asked me what basically on the information that I know, that's what I was told. Now I'm not saying I believe that, because personally something shady did happen. But what I would say was that was the procedure that the British Board of Control said they took. Now I'm not saying that's true, but that's what I was told.
Okay.
No. Listen, guys, we're almost at the end of the show. But before we go, I just wanted to get your thoughts on, and I know Shane wanted to speak on this, but I wanted to get your thoughts on Sky making the announcement earlier on this week about, that their deal that they've got with Boxer. We know that they're showing fights across overseas with Top Rank as well. But some of the Boxer shows that they've got on, we saw that Chris Eubank Jr. will be fighting somebody called El Beer. Huey Fury will be fighting Hammer. Who else is there? I think we've got
Richard Reactor,
Savannah Marshall. Savannah Marshall will be on there. I think they're trying to bring Clarissa Shields over as well.
Richard Reactor. Richard Reactor's
on there. So yeah, what do you make of this whole Go on.
Josh Taylor versus
Josh Taylor be fighting. It's like end of October, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's the one that they're pushing the most, actually.
Yeah, so basically what I wanted to ask was just what's your thoughts on this partnership between Sky and Boxer, and obviously with Top Rank? You know, obviously they had the long-term deal with Matchroom. They've had to move on now. They've taken a step in this direction. What's your thoughts on it, man? Like, Shane, I'll start with you.
So I'll talk about the Matchroom thing, and I'll talk about. So basically, I'm in the middle of writing a story. The story is actually real good. I'm in the middle of writing it, and basically, I think I'm frozen.
No, you can still hear you.
Can you still hear me? Yeah,
can still hear you.
Yeah, as I was saying, I'm in the middle of writing this story, and this story is basically Eddie Hearn done Sky in completely. He done them in, literally done them in. I'll tell you why. From the moment he signed the zone deal with Matchroom in America, from that moment onwards, he was always going to sign with the zone in the UK. He was always going to do it. And I'll tell you how I know. If you look in the story, I'll talk about the pay-per-views before he signed with the zone in 2018 and after he signed with the zone in 2018. There's been a massive like reduction. Literally, the quality of shows he's given to Sky since signing with the zone has been absolutely trash. The pay-per-view numbers have been poor, and literally, he almost flogged himself to the zone for the whole time. So he knew that he was going to leave Sky 2 years ago. This whole pretense that he didn't know where he was going and it was a hard decision, it was all a fraud and it was all a lie, because for the last 2 years, he's literally been giving Sky the drips and drabs of shows. He's literally been giving them trash shows, and it's literally starting to show. So he's really, in my opinion, that's disrespectful, because what Sky done for him in the first place, giving him the money after he absolutely bored the place out with Audley Harrison and David Hay, and they stopped doing pay-per-views. He almost killed pay-per-views in the UK, and then they still gave him a second chance. And the amount of money they pumped into him for him to do what he's done to Sky is so bad. But I will say this: I'm happy he's done that, because that means we get rid of all of those trash commentators that were on Sky, like Johnny Nelson, all of them, man. They were done out here. Like, but all in all, I feel like I don't respect what he done with Sky, and I'm gonna show you the details. Like, literally, when I dropped the article, I sent it to both of you guys. Literally, the numbers are astonishing, how much they've regressed since he signed with the zone, and how much he hasn't prioritized the zone, and the budgets that he's been getting ain't been going towards the Sky budget. Trust me.
What's your thoughts on the Sky Boxer partnership and Shane's comments, Laurie?
Well, Shane's comments are interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing his article. So hit me up when that's done, bro. With regards to the whole deal that you spoke about and that's been announced, speaking as a boxing fan, without getting too politically invested, I just want to see big fights, attractive fights. Even if they're not big fights, I just want to see like regular boxing on terrestrial TV that is worthy of the name. Now, that being said, when I looked at some of those fights that they announced, I wasn't really that excited for most of them, to be honest. The one that stands out is the Josh Taylor versus Jack Catterall, which is basically a sort of local derby, Scotland versus England. And even then, let's be honest, man, no disrespect to Jack Catterall, but I think that's a fairly easy fight for Josh Taylor. So I welcome the fact that we've got boxing back on terrestrial TV. I welcome the fact that there's some new guys bringing some new material, but they're going to have to step their game up in terms of fights. And just to add a point, I do agree with what Shane said, that when Eddie Hearn tried to go down this pay-per-view route for every fight, it just doesn't work, because boxing is not that popular. What they should have been looking at doing is getting boxing more back on the mainstream. And then for the very biggest fights, then, you know, your AJ versus Usyk. To me, that's a pay-per-view fight. But some of the pay-per-views that we were seeing, man, previously, even people like Dylan versus Povetkin, that's not pay-per-view fights.
Or Parker versus Chisora. How is that a pay-per-view?
Come on, man. Joseph Parker.
No.
You know what I mean? That's a cure for insomnia. That's not pay-per-view shit, bro.
Just go to the comment here just quickly. Harvey, Shane, you don't have Twitter, do you? Just confirm.
I will explain why I don't have Twitter. I had Twitter and I've done an article about the WBC and their clean boxing program, and the WBC removed it without reading it. It just got removed because they have a verified account. And since then,
you're talking about clean boxing program. The WBC had this. That's non-existent for them.
Well, and then because of that, I was like, you know what? I'll never ever join Twitter again because I didn't do anything wrong. They just removed the article because someone who's more verified didn't like it, so they could just take it down, which I thought was unfair. So I've never been on Twitter since.
Listen, clean.
Yeah, but Harvey, you can catch Shane on Instagram. Shane, give
Instagram.
your Instagram out there for Harvey.
I'm Shane, the number one.
Listen, the words clean boxing and WBC don't belong in the same sentence. It doesn't go, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It should be, it's WBC for a reason. World Boxing Canelo. That's what they exist for, to satisfy the whims of their pound for pound number one, numero uno guy, Saul Canelo Alvarez. That's their business. They're in the business of promoting Canelo, and that's it. So he can cheat and get away with it. He can put in a call to Suleiman and say, bump up Abner Yildirim from bum to number one contender. Which is, yeah, am I lying? Am I lying? That's what happened. And I remember when I said that on the show, Daryl will tell you, I had people coming at me. How do you know? And then it was revealed a few weeks later that Canelo had requested that Abner Yildirim be his mandatory challenger, even though Abner Yildirim at that point had not fought for 2 years and had been beaten in his previous fight. Yet still he was able to get number one. Now, how does that happen?
Listen, guys, man, it's been a fantastic show. We've gone in on all of our topics today. Great show, great show. I want to thank Shane for coming on. I want to thank Laurie for just being Laurie, as always. I want to thank all of you guys in the comments for contributing as you do every week. Don't forget, on the way out, man, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be dropping some more videos this week with regards to some of this weekend's action. So keep an eye out for those. And listen, man, like, fantastic show. Shane and Laurie, do you want to close it out? Shane, I'll start with you.
Yeah, man, just thank you for having me on. I mean, whenever I come on, it's always a good welcome. Laurie is like, normally we're going at it about something, but today we 100% agree on most of the topics. I mean, I just hope we do this more often. I hope we can do one live, like actually in person, not on Zoom or something.
Laurie, we're working on that, aren't we?
Yeah, we're trying to do a watch along for the Usyk Joshua fight. So we'll come back to you on that. We're trying to make plans as we speak.
That's dope.
In terms of me bowing out, I just want to say, Daryl, thanks very much for the opportunity once again. You give me an opportunity to engage one of my main passions in life, and that's boxing, and I'm grateful to you. Thanks for all the viewers, man. Like, share, and subscribe. And I just want to end by saying that, listen, guys, if you're feeling low and you need a bit of a lift, herbal tea is the way forward. It's amazing what herbal tea can do for you, bro. Just ask Oscar Valdez.
We'll end it there, guys, man. Have a great evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Another great show. Thanks to all of you guys, man. And listen, we'll catch you all next week. Peace out.